Texas is known for its vast roadway network, its plentiful wildlife, and unfortunately, when you combine the two, lots of roadkill. Although they've been happening since Texas began building roads, wildlife vehicle collisions have become a major and costly problem.
Based on TxDOT record, there are over 7,500 animal-involved crash every year reported to TxDOT.
Although most animal vehicle collisions go unreported, researchers at the Center for Transportation Research at the University of Texas found that during an 8-year period, there were more than 60,000 reported crashes with animals, resulting in 160 human deaths. There were thousands of injuries, with the average annual cost to Texas motorists topping $600 million.
People can die, and do die, going off the road trying to make sure they didn't hit dead animals.
Researchers and the biologists working on this project agree they would like to see the agency and the districts place more emphasis on safety of both people and wildlife. And so far, their passion appears to be catching on.
As we've done outreach through the development of this project, what we found is that engineers that had never considered this to be an issue, once they're informed and educated a little bit about it, then they become passionate for it too.
So, what can be done to protect wildlife and people?
Fencing was put the entire length of SH 100 from where the center concrete barrier is. It's about 7 miles on each side.
This is Cameron County, home to the Laguna Atascosa National Wildlife Refuge, and the county where most of these rare and elusive cats live. Only about 100 ocelots remain in Texas. They were listed as endangered in 1982 by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service.
Ocelots may have their home range in the wildlife refuge, but it doesn't have fences around it. So when you have a dispersing male ocelot trying to find new territory, they're going to go off the refuge and they go onto our roadways.
And oftentimes, ocelots die on these roads. In one 10-month period, 7 of the cats were hit and killed by motorists. These 2 ocelots were captured, radio collared, and then released by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service so they could be monitored and studied. But sadly, both of these cats were also killed on area roads. Several years ago, to protect ocelots and to meet federal requirements, TxDOT began building a series of wildlife crossings on several Rio Grande Valley roadways in and around the heart of ocelot habitat. The idea was to funnel the cats to the crossings along newly constructed fence lines on the road's edge. The ocelots could then safely get to the other side by traveling these protected tunnels just underneath the road. Game cameras were set up at each crossing to monitor the ocelot's behavior. As it turned out, researchers learned a lot about the other wildlife in the area.
Well, initially, the culvert was designed just for protect the ocelot, but once we start recording the animals that start using the culvert, there was several kinds of species. It was hogs, pigs, deer, snakes, armadillos, all kinds of animals are using the actual culvert.
In fact, at just one of 5 wildlife crossings on State Highway 100 monitored by game cameras, there were more than 1,700 animals that successfully used the crossings during an 18-month period. Saving animal and, as a result, human lives with wildlife crossings is not news to Patricia Kramer, a well-known wildlife crossing expert who helped on this TxDOT project. In Utah, for example, she monitored a deer crossing that has received plenty of attention.
That wildlife crossing has something like 50 times a day, every day of the year, mule deer go through that crossing structure. And on March 18th, 2018, it was over 90 times in a day that mule deer went through that.
Many other states are creating wildlife crossings at known hotspots when they build or expand an existing roadway or bridge. Why couldn't wildlife crossings become more common in Texas?
In Texas, we don't have these big herds of animals moving seasonally. What we have is many different diverse animals moving all the time. It makes the problem a little harder, but it doesn't make it unsolvable. What you have to do is start thinking about that kind of problem very early in your planning process in order to be able to come up with an engineered solution that accommodates both the needs of the traveling public and the movements of wildlife across the landscape.
Robertson says the project resulted in suggested changes to 18 different TxDOT manuals, urging wildlife crossings be considered by roadway designers in areas where crossings would make sense. In this project, researchers have discovered just how deadly and costly wildlife vehicle collisions are in Texas, how other states are using wildlife crossings, how successful the crossings have become in the FAR district, how wildlife crossings can be cost-effective by eliminating crashes and injuries, and why preserving animal populations is important to the Texas way of life.
I think it's great for the state of Texas for protecting our wildlife for future generations. I think it's great for TxDOT that they can be starting now to really think about this issue and getting the message across.
We're starting to realize that if we can get wildlife concerns brought in early in the transportation process, then the departments of transportation can better plan for and build structures or fencing, etc., that will help keep the animals off the road.